Hey everybody, what's happening? I'm Adam, this is Go To Outdoors, and I would love to welcome you back to another one. Today, shocker, I'm in the woods again. But not just any woods. As you can see from the white blaze on the tree behind me, I am once again on the Appalachian Trail, because today I want to be going over something that was really helpful for me when I was out there on my trek this year, and that of course is the Hyperlite Mountain Gear Southwest 4400. Let's get into it. It's a chilly one. It's about 40 degrees out right now. Okay, that was a little over dramatic. It's not really that heavy. It's not heavy at all, which in fact is the main reason I first got this pack. This pack, according to the manufacturer's specifications, is 2.45 pounds, which it actually dropped 5 pounds off the original pack that I was carrying on the trail, which was an Osprey, a 70-liter Osprey. Now, this is, again, like I said, the 4400 model, which is the largest of the three models of the Southwest that Hyperlite Mountain Gear makes. And this is also equivalent to 70 liters, so I really wasn't losing anything in terms of overall capacity when I made the switch from my other pack to this pack. But losing over 4 pounds of base weight was key. It was the best decision I made the entire time I was out on the trail. Well, let's start with a quick overview of the pack itself. On both sides, there is a large, deep pocket, one on that side, one on that side, and in the back is the largest of the three. This is a very large, very deep outside pocket. It doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the pack. It ends about 2 inches up, but that was actually okay because it meant that you really didn't have it always in the dirt, in the mud. Now, being this is a white pack, and I did use this in a very dirty, wet environment, yeah, it's got some, life. It's got some character. It shows that it's been used. This model does also come in a black fabric, which I did see one other person that was actually out on the trail using that. In this size, of course, a lot of folks use the smaller backpacks. I use the biggest one because, again, like I said, I didn't want to lose any capacity over my first pack that I had. That said, I never managed to fill this thing up. Fully stretched out, which, let's do that for you real quick. Okay, it's unrolled. Let's move it back up. So, it's sitting on my knee now, and you cannot see the top of it. And that's because unrolled, this thing is insanely deep. It is, according to the manufacturer, 38.5 inches from the base to the top of the unrolled pack. And of course, having the large interior circumference like that, that's a lot of volume. There's no way I was ever going to fill this thing up. But that said, it still held everything that I needed to, and if I wanted to keep a couple things a little extra dry by throwing it in the inside of the pack versus the outside, I could do that if I wanted. If you've done any looking into the ultralight backpacks, such as this, Z-Packs makes theirs, you got your Light AF, various brands that use this Dyneema, used to be called DCF, Dyneema Cuban fiber material, and this is a slightly thicker material than I've seen on some of the other ones, which is why I went with this pack. But that said, because it is that material, I didn't have to carry a rainfly, which was kind of a bonus because that was a couple extra ounces I had to carry when I was using my Osprey before. Let me actually switch my camera here real quick. The sun is moving. One moment. Now that I have you hidden from the sun, you shouldn't get any glare, so let's continue. Anyway, so like I was saying, this is the DCF, the Cuban fiber, the Dyneema fabric that they constructed this pack out of. The outside is grid stop fabric. This right here, the three pockets are not made of DCF. This is just another nylon material. And I kind of like that because it added a little bit of abrasion resistance where I needed it, because I was always going under things or crawling over things. How you doing? I'll shut up for a minute. All right, just ran into a local who was actually using the trail just like I do, so props to him. Anyway, like I was saying, the DCF fabric that they are constructing these out of, it's touted as being waterproof, which I never really had a problem with any water getting into this thing directly. What I was noticing a few times on really, really hot days, or on days when I just did not feel like putting on my rain gear or anything else, and of course there were a few days where it was just soaking, like absolutely pouring down rain all day long. I did notice some it seemed like condensation. It was just a film of water on the inside of the pack, but it really wasn't that big of a problem because I planned ahead, and inside I carried just, you know, a compactor bag, a large, very large black trash bag. And I do that anyway, just out of insurance. I want to keep everything dry. And because, again, I was carrying my electronics and I had a whole bunch of extra stuff in there that I just didn't want to get wet. But if you are looking for a pack like this, I will mention that it is not 100% waterproof. Okay. All right, let me get this rolled down again real quick. Okay, there we go. So here's what we got. The outside of the pack itself, you have there's kind of a cinch strap right here, and it connects to a Y strap on the top. And this is going to be your compression strap. That's how you keep everything kind of centered. Everything's ready to go. When I switched back to my Z-Lite sole closed cell foam pad, I kept that on the top of my pack underneath this strap, kind of just slapped on top. When I was carrying my Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite, I had that rolled up and I carried that in the outside pocket here, outside pocket, right next to my Z-Packs duplex. I had my tent here, I had my sleeping pad here. There are a couple times, going back to the moisture issue, when I said that it kind of got everything soaked. Now, a few things to mention on carrying a sleeping pad in an outside pocket such as this. Shockingly, because it is open to the air, that's not a waterproof pocket. So just bear in mind, if you put anything out there and it starts to rain, it's not going to stay dry for long. Now, I have made a few additions to this pack, so the base weight by itself isn't exactly 2.45 pounds anymore. Now it's about 2.63. And that's because I have added a little carabiner onto the loop strap right underneath the cinch strap. And that's actually somewhere that I carried my camp sandals. I put a piece of rope, a piece of cordage through the top of my sandals, and during the day I usually just had them clipped onto here. They were just hanging off the back of my pack. Again, sometimes they got wet, and on days when I thought it was going to rain and they weren't too muddy and dirty from camp the night before, I ended up usually just tossing those into the very top of my pack so I could have those first thing when I got into camp that evening. But it's still a good thing to have. Carabiners are going to be your friend if you're out in the woods. Now, another thing I will mention is on the front of the pack, or the pack part of the pack that's touching you, onto the shoulder pads, I did add Z-Packs water bottle holders. I put one on each of the shoulder straps, so I was able to carry 2 water bottles on the front. The side pockets that are here, I've seen a lot of people just carry their water bottles in there during the day, but as much as I was stumbling and falling, I tended to eject those water bottles lickety-split, and I hated having to chase them down, so I'm really glad I invested in these. You know, they weigh a little bit of nothing, and they add some very good functionality to the front of the pack. Now, going on to the shoulder straps themselves, I will say that they are a little bit thin. You know, there's not a lot of material there, and some people complain about that. I really didn't find that to be much of a problem. Now, Hyperlite Mountain Gear does list this as being able to comfortably carry up to 60 pounds, which again, I would totally expect for something that's rated to carry 70 liters worth of gear. I carried at most 52 pounds in this thing, and I didn't find any problem at all with these shoulder straps. Not in terms of the compression on my shoulders. Now, they pinched me a little bit at the top of my neck, but that's only because you might notice that these are, you know, fairly thin together. You know, that's only a couple of inches right there. And for me personally, it pinched the top, you know, the bottom of my neck, top of my traps. But it really only bothered me after I'd been hiking for probably 8 hours. If I was going to push a dawn to dusk day, like I did sometimes, that's really the only time I would notice that the straps got to me a little bit. But the waist belt, I did not have any problems with at all. Now, unlike some of the other packs that I've used, this is not an interchangeable hip belt. This is sewn into the fabric, or into the pack itself, so make sure you know what you're going to get before you get your pack. Now, if you're comfortable with a sewing machine, I would say err on the edge of caution and get a larger hip belt, because you can always shorten these straps right here and then just throw a couple stitches into the webbing if you cut it. So keep that in mind when you're shopping for these. Get one that you're comfortable with, but no, you can shrink down into. So underneath everything else, let's flip the shoulder straps back here. This is a frameless pack, which A, helps it keep it extremely lightweight, and B, makes it so you're really not constrained by how you pack things. Now again, this is not really thick material. It's a very thin padding, but it was just enough because most of what I packed right behind it was my soft stuff. I carried, at the bottom of my pack, I carried my sleeping quilt. On top of that, I carried my clothes. And in between there, I carried my battery packs, my electronics, my stove, a couple other things. And at the very top, I had my food bag. I put the heaviest gear that I had, the heaviest part of my equipment, on top. So it actually helped everything press down evenly on my lower back, and the hip belt kept the weight off a lot of the front of my shoulders, which was awesome. I really liked that way that worked out for me. Now, there are people that I talked to when I was out there that didn't like the frameless packs because they felt it put too much pressure on their back, or they felt, oh, you're gonna get too sweaty. I can tell you from personal experience that having the packs that have the mesh that go underneath there, yeah, you're still gonna sweat, like a lot. So I didn't mind personally having this pad sitting directly on my back. I was gonna sweat anyway. And honestly, when the temperatures dropped pretty quickly, I actually liked having it right there, so there wasn't any breeze that happened to go through to chill me out. And, you know, it worked out just fine. I never had any uncomfortable stuff poking through to me through the padding, so yeah, it's lightweight, it's simple, it's efficient. I call it a win. Being that there is no frame and nothing else on the inside of this pack, it didn't stand up too well when it was sitting full of gear when I finally got to a campsite. The bottom's kind of flat. Of course, it gets, you know, depends on how you pack it and everything else like that. But they did put a really thick Dyneema fabric on the bottom here, because obviously this is going to take a beating. If you're just sitting down, if you're leaning against a tree, you slip, that's the part that's always hitting. And obviously you can tell from the dirt that I've got, yeah, it took a beating. Now the top and everything else held up really well. I did notice after I'd used it for a while that the folds that I put into the top itself, the roll down portion, you'll see there's some very pronounced folds that they develop. I don't know if over time that would become an issue in terms of, you know, wearing out the fabric, or becoming a weak spot or a wet spot or something else like that down the line. But it's just something to keep in mind. Obviously, packs like this, they're designed to be used, and I believe I could get a through hike and then some out of one of these. This is the pack I'm going to be using the next long hike that I do. But I think by the end of my next hike, it might be seeing a little bit of wear and tear, and I might have to start looking at something different. But right now, it's fantastic. The complaints that I have about this thing have nothing to do with the construction. It more or less has to do with the choices I made. Because looking back, I did not need to get the 4400. I could have easily gotten away with using the Hyperlite Mountain Gear Southwest 3400, which is the next next version down, the smaller version. And that would have been plenty to carry all my stuff. It is lighter, it is more compact overall, and fully stretched out, I can reach the bottom. That's, again, one thing when I noticed on this one, when this thing is fully unfolded, stretched out to the maximum, I can't reach the bottom. So I'm usually ending up dumping this on its side and just upending my pack to get the stuff out of the bottom. So, something to think about. I hear snow geese. There are snow geese. Okay, sorry about that. I'm back to the main reason I'm here. I get excited about birds sometimes. I think they're amazing. I love the waterfowl especially. You know that I'm a waterfowl hunter as much as I can be, and that I'm very happy I came out here today. So sorry about that. I'm fanboying out about snow geese and waterfowl. And let's get back to this. So, final thoughts. I really do like this pack. It is plenty of room to fit anything that I need to carry. It's durable from what I've experienced so far. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, it's water resistant, fairly close to waterproof. Now, like I was saying, I still keep all of my gear inside of the black compactor trash bag inside of here, just as one extra layer of protection to protect my electronics and my quilt and things like that that I need to keep dry all the time. But that said, the only times I noticed any condensation forming on the inside of this pack was when it had been raining for days on end, or on stupid hot days like when it was in the mid-90s or above, and I was sweating so hard that I managed to soak through the foam pad on the back. That's on me, and that's kind of disgusting. But we're not going there. I really can't complain at all about the decision to get this pack, again, like you said, except for the fact that I kind of wish I'd gotten the smaller one. Now, that's not to say that this is a bad pack at all. If you're going on an extended pack, extended hike, where you're going to be going for probably a week at a time between resupplies, say for instance the 100-mile wilderness up in Maine, or even longer trips through the desert portions over on the PCT or on the CDT or anywhere else where you're not 100% sure you can get a hold of things on the regular, having the extra volume in here probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Now, it's probably also not a bad idea to have this pack if you want to keep a bear canister, which is something I'm going to be picking up before too long, because there's going to be places where I will be hiking in the future that do require you to have one. And this pack has enough internal volume that I could slap that right on top of everything else inside of the pack and not have to worry about trying to cinch down a zipper or do things like that, because, again, this thing is tons of room on the inside. Because this has a roll top on the main body compartment here, if you don't fill it completely up, it's not like it's going to be saggy fabric. You don't need something inside of it to keep everything stretched tight, because you can just roll it down. And when you roll it down, you'll notice that this strap right here, my compression strap, is all the way down at the bottom. And the Y strap on top, I actually have a good portion of it as well that's taken up slack. So you can cinch this thing down pretty much as far as you want it to. And it gets down to probably about that big. That's going to be 35 liters, I'd say. So I'm willing to say this goes down to about half its full capacity before it starts getting to be difficult just to roll the top down any further. But I have no complaints. This is a fantastic pack. I would highly recommend this pack. So again, keep an eye out for a couple holiday sales this year. Black Friday is coming up, and of course between then and the holiday week off and beginning of the new year, you're going to be finding a lot of gear sales. Don't know for sure if Hyperlite's going to have one, but it never hurts to check it out. I know REI does have a couple sales coming up, and that's actually where I got this pack from. They were in fact the only people that were able to get this pack in stock when I needed a new pack halfway through my trek this year. So very, very good for REI. But that's all I really got to say about this pack today. So, like I always say, thanks again for watching. Make sure you go find a reason to smile today, and I'll catch you in the next one.